I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be how to become great at anything. Well, one caveat that I want to add to that title is in order to become great at something, you got to do something that you really love. Because if you're doing something you love, it's not really going to feel like work, especially if you're trying to do something to become an athlete, or maybe you want to be a writer, or you want to be an actor, or you want to be a musician, or you want to be a singer, or you want to be an entrepreneur. You have to figure out, first off, what's most important to you in life, what is emotionally compelling to you. And repetition is the mother of skill. You are, just like Aristotle said 2,000 years ago, excellence is not a singular act. It is a habit. You are what you do repeatedly. And I say this all the time. Repetition is the mother of skill. And so if there's something that you're not very good at, here's interesting, when as a life coach, when I look at people who never really went for what they really wanted because deep down they just thought that they either A, didn't have what it takes, or B, wouldn't be able to deal with all the negativity and the put downs of all of their relatives and their friends and family telling them what an idiot they are and how stupid they are and how bad the idea is and how it will never work out for them. It's just interesting when you talk to different people. It's like they get to a certain point and it's like they push up against that fear barrier, because your comfort zone is going to be where you're most uncomfortable. In other words, you got to stretch beyond your comfort zone if you want to expand and you want to become more than you are today. But the average person, it's like they get in their 20s, their early 30s, and it's like they get in their little box of life, their little sandbox. They get their steady job, they get married, they have their kids, and it's like everything's the same shit day in and day out. It's like, now how many people have you asked in your life, hey man, what's up? Oh, same shit, different day. I mean, how many times have you heard that? I mean, if you were to get a nickel for every person that said that to you in your life when you've asked them, I mean, think about that. It's like the average person is not living a life at their full potential. They move in the direction of what they want, and then it's like as soon as they hit whatever their perceived barrier of fear happens to be, they usually will back off and like never touch that boundary again. It's kind of like how they train elephants. Like when the elephant's a little baby elephant, they tie it with its ankle. They tie a really thick, heavy chain around its ankle to a tree, and obviously it pulls and it can't get anywhere. And as the animal grows up and then eventually becomes this big, several-ton, giant elephant, they can tie like a little tiny string around its ankle, and it won't. And even though it could pull that string and snap it easily, it doesn't do it because it became conditioned when it was a little elephant to believe that it could never break the string. And so the elephant's belief is so strong that the string is unbreakable that it doesn't even attempt it. Isn't that fascinating? It's like we become conditioned due to what is going on in our world. And so the interesting thing is that what makes it so difficult is that if you want to do something and you're not really going after the things you want, or your career sucks, or you never really started that business you want, it's like always in the back of your mind, you kind of got a little bit of fear, like, God, what if I go my whole life and I never really take some risks and go for what it is that I wanted? And yet, do you really want to be happy with that? And it's like, like for me, the thought of not going for my dreams, or like when I was working at a job, when I was still working for other people, and I no longer had that same internal enthusiasm that I once felt for the job, to me, it was physically painful to stay at a job when my heart wasn't in it, because I was literally using a tremendous amount of willpower to do the daily activities. In other words, to motivate myself to do the things I needed to do my job successfully in order to keep my job, because obviously I needed to pay the bills. But the way I always learned to recognize those situations from like when I was really young was that when my internal enthusiasm, when my internal guidance system, if you will, was guiding me or pulling me in a different direction to a different company or a different career or to start a new business, I always honored that truth. I always started looking, because to me the worst thing to do was to stay where I felt like I was being mediocre or where I was kind of stagnating, because a lot of people get to a level in their lives and they just kind of stagnate, and that's it. And it's just like they're kind of on the conveyor belt of life into their grave, and they spend their whole lives not being happy, not being in the kind of relationship that they really want, or not having the kind of quality of relationship that they really want, or not having the kind of business that they really want, not having the kind of career that they want, not having the kind of friends that they really want, not being able to travel and see the world and go do the kinds of things that they want to do. And it's like, for me as a life coach, it's like when I look at somebody's eyes, I can see it. I can see people, I can tell who's happy. I can tell who's not. I can read it in the emails when people, even the people that say all, the nasty comments on my YouTube channel. It's like they, like leaving a turd on your front lawn. It's like no one will ever do or say anything that isn't a direct reflection of how they feel about themselves in a moment. And so people are always projecting outside what's internally what they don't like. And so in other words, if you're a very happy person and you're optimistic and you go through life, you're going to encounter people that are just, for whatever reason, they're going to be in a shitty mood. Maybe they're people that you know. I'm like, oh, I don't know why you're in such a good fucking mood. It's like, it's fucking raining out. And, they're just pissed and they're complaining about things. And what's interesting is because you're connected to your happiness and you feel good about yourself, and they feel miserable and they're disconnected, it's like they're envious of you. They're resentful. And so what they tend to do is try to attack you and get you to come down to their, because misery loves company, right? They try to get you to come down to their level and be miserable like them. Because if they can get you to do that, then it justifies their behavior. It justifies them continuing to think and live and be the way they are. And that's why it's so critically important that you surround yourself in life with people who support you, who nurture you, who believe in what you're doing, who encourage you, who are optimistic, who when you sit down and you're going, God, things are really tough, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. They're like, no, you can do it, you're smart, you'll figure it out. And they'll brainstorm with you. They'll build you back up, they'll dust you off, as opposed to somebody who's like, God, I don't know if I can make it. They're like, yeah, I always thought you were a fucking idiot for starting that business or thinking that you could get that kind of, whatever it happens to be. So it's really important because life is hard enough. It's like surround yourself with people who believe in you, who nurture you, who honor you, who encourage you to be you. And so I've got an email here from a viewer, and he's a musician. And the quote, I got a quote I want to share with you first. This is from Plato. For a man to conquer himself is the first and noblest of all victories. I love that because to me, what that speaks to me as a man, in other words, it's about becoming and reaching your full potential. It's about becoming the person that you were designed to be. It's about becoming the person that you were meant to be. However, in order to get there, in order to become this person, in order to become great at being you, in order to become great at the things that you're supposed to become great at, you have to learn to overcome your own internal psychology, limiting beliefs, fears that you have that are innate, because we all take on the fears and limiting beliefs and doubts of our friends, family, and our peer group. And so not only do you have to deal with your own internal psychology, but you got to learn to let the negative shit that comes from other people outside of you bounce off of you to where it doesn't deter you. And that's easier. It's easy to sit here and talk about it and do it, but it's a lot harder when you're in a really difficult challenge. Or maybe you got a business that you've been at for like 4 years and you got millions of dollars invested in it, and you're not any closer to figuring out a profitable business model than you were when you started. And so when you're in that moment like that and you're doubting yourself whether or not you're going to be able to pull it off, and then you got those other people around you that are always there, always the weak people that are saying it's never going to work out. And so you got to be able to find a way to motivate yourself when the times are tough and you doubt whether yourself you're going to be able to pull it out. And on top of that, you got people around you telling you that you can't do it. And that's why it's in those particular moments. That's why if you have not chosen something that's your true passion in life, you'll quit. You'll give up. Because the thought of doing something else and getting a steady paycheck or going to work for somebody else or whatever happens, if you're just giving up and taking a different route is easier than persevering until you eventually figure it out or overcome whatever obstacle it happens to be. So he says, hey, coach, I'm a musician in my senior year of college, and the teacher that I've been working with for the past 4 years is widely considered to be the best at his field. And as a result, he always produces the best students. While I've made significant improvement on my instrument, I am still at the bottom tier of players in my school. And I know there's a lot of competition, but I've been told by many, including my teacher, that I have one of the best sounds in the studio. The problem is, he says, is that I have some of the other things in my playing, such as the mental aspect of playing the instrument, like reading music, is slower than others. I have made improvement and I work hard at my craft, but I feel that my bad habits are really hard to get rid of. How should I go about fixing this and finally getting to where I want to go in college and in the future? It's interesting. So it's like you got a passion, but doubts are coming up and uncertainties are coming up, and you look around at the rest of the people. I mean, I remember I was in that same place when I was thinking about leaving Syntax Rooney and starting my own real estate company, buying, fixing, and selling foreclosure properties. I'm working with people, and I was like, a lot of those guys were smarter than me. And a lot of them been in the industry 20, 30 years. And so I'm thinking, here I am. I'm like, mid-20s. I'm thinking, if it's so easy, why aren't these guys doing it? And it's like, so when you're working with other people that are smarter than you and are better than you at a lot of the things that you do day in and day out, and you're thinking, why haven't these guys started their own business yet? And so that shit fucks with your head. And so you gotta learn to not let everybody else and what they're doing affect you or cause you to not go for the things that you want. And so in your particular case, so you basically are saying reading music is hard for you. Well, repetition is the mother of skill. That's the bottom line. Just like Aristotle said, excellence is not a singular act. It is a habit. You are what you do repeatedly. And so if you suck at reading music, the only way to become great at it is to do it over and over and over again to the point where you don't have to think about it. And so if you want to be really, it's just like the video I did the other day, grinding is my rest. I highly encourage you to watch that video. It's like when you look at professional athletes, they do the special things. In order to get to the level, if you want to get like the NFL level or the London Symphony Orchestra, or, one of my old girlfriends, her father plays in a London Symphony Orchestra, and he's a brilliant musician. And he got that way because he loves what he does. His brother's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's a very famous rock and roll drummer. Why? How did he get to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? He loved playing drums. And he did it over and over and over and over again since he was a kid because he had a passion for it. He eventually got into a band. He surrounded himself with other people who were just as driven and just as hungry and just as motivated as he was. The band U2, I'm sure you've heard of the band U2. They're one of the biggest bands in the world. Did you know that when they got together, those guys were all best friends growing up, and none of them played any instruments? They just all decided, hey, let's create a band together. And so they got together and they just started playing instruments. And they sounded like shit when they first started playing, but they didn't know any better. And so repetition's the mother of skill. That's what they did over and over and over and over and over again. That's 30-something years ago that they started out on that journey, 40 years ago maybe at this point. But the point being is that they've been after that dream since they were kids. And so it's like when you decide to do something, you decide to start a new business or a new career, you never know exactly how you're going to go about it or how you're going to get there. It's just like the guys from U2. They didn't know how they were going to become a successful band. All they knew was that they wanted to become a great band. And so what they did was focus on becoming great musicians. And you become a great musician by working on it over and over and over and over. People looked at what Michael Jackson did. Nobody looks at the fact that he'd been playing and performing since he was a little boy. He pretty much didn't have a chance to, and the family he was in. But nobody looks at the thousands of hours of rehearsals that him or any of the other well-known singers of today went through to get there. People just go, oh yeah, they were just talented. They were born that way. They were born rich. They were born into money. They were born smart. That's what the typical loser says when it's faced with the uncomfortable feeling that they know deep down they're not living at their full potential. That's the label they use. That's how they make themselves feel good about themselves and never really take any action. So if you want to be great, follow your passion and do it over and over and over, just like Maya Angelou said, until you do it so well that people can't take their eyes off of you. So I will talk to you soon.